Hey, friends. Happy, yes, I think it's doing it. Happy Wednesday to you. I'm trying to double check that this is actually loading, or excuse me, live streaming. It looks like it is. I'm going to trust that it is, even though it doesn't seem like it is on my phone. Am I going to trust that it is? Nope. I'm going to keep bothering this. Oh, it is. Okay, cool, cool. Yes. Hi, friends. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for your patience with my technical, well, not necessarily difficulties. But yeah, I just want to make sure that everything is doing what it do. Welcome, Nikki. Thank you for letting me know that I am live because I'd be struggling, child. Um, yeah. Happy Wednesday to you. Happy pre-colonizer holiday, but also I hope that you have a day off tomorrow and maybe a long weekend. Cheers to that. Mm. Um, in this live stream, we're going to be talking about the astrology transits for the month of July and also after we get through the major transits, I definitely want to open it up to questions, especially if you have questions about how these charts might affect you personally, depending on what your chart looks like. Or if you just have general questions about your astrology chart, generally speaking. So yeah, I plan to be on live definitely no more than an hour, but I'm thinking probably like 30, 45 minutes. We'll see how it goes, depending on the kinds of questions that we have. But yeah, generally speaking, I'm excited to talk about July's astrology because there's some big transits happening. Let's get into it if you feel ready and open to it. I do. Let's make this bigger. Hold on. Bam. And is there another version that's even bigger? Yeah, that's the one. Oh, also, pardon my browsing history here on the right side of things with all of these ads. I freaking hate that. It's so fucking annoying the way that they like show your whole dang history and want to advertise to you, but it is what it is. Anyway, so if you can see that chart, let me check that page out. There we go. You'll see that I have it set for Sunday, June 30th, because that is the day that the first transit that we're going to talk about for July actually went down. And I want us to be able to look at that map. The transit that I'm talking about first and foremost is Saturn in Pisces, retrograding, starting at 19 degrees and working its way backwards over the next 6 months or so. And let me use my cursor so you can see what I'm talking about right there. That little Saturn symbol with the R next to it talks about Saturn retrograde. Um, it is interesting to note, and let me check my notes here, uh, that the idea about Saturn retrograde, let's see, hold on. So, the idea about Saturn retrograding in Pisces. Um, so, Saturn entered Pisces back in March of 2023. Wherever we find Saturn, generally speaking, is basically a task that has been assigned to us. Like there's Saturn in your birth chart that talks about like your life task. And then there's also a Saturn in the sky. And that talks about kind of the work that everybody, like the collective, is doing. And so Saturn in Pisces That started in March of 2023, and it'll be going through Pisces through May of 2025, so about 2 years. Shout out to everybody who's in their Saturn return right now, by the way. But yeah, basically, that talks about everybody in some way doing the work of boundaries, doing the work of connecting to people, doing the work of connecting to your spirituality and your sense of the way that your soul is connected to the world and the natural world and the energy around you. And so, yeah, everybody might be experiencing a little bit of spiritual work, a little bit of relational work, a little bit of boundary work, depending on where you have Pisces in your chart. So, for example, I just talked to a client that has Pisces in their seventh house. So, they're definitely doing relational work in terms of understanding their boundaries in their one-on-one connections with people. I happen to have Pisces in my fourth house, and so I've been doing some work about my foundational emotional health and my experience of like home and family. And so, yeah, as we think about retrograding Saturn, which will be Saturn will be retrograding, I think, until November 15th. What we might experience is that same work that we have been doing since March of 23 becoming more internal. So we get a chance to be more introspective, more evaluative. We get to like look at what has been working in terms of the tasks that we have been assigned from Saturn, what has actually worked for us in terms of laying out our boundaries, what has actually worked for us in terms of connecting to our spiritual self or our emotional and intuitive self, or what has not been working and what needs to be sort of finagled, edited, reworked, re-ideated about. Any sort of re words are what I think about when I think about any planet going in retrograde. So this is a time to be more introspective. Yes, you've been putting in work in this particular area of your life since March. Has that work been successful? What structures have you built up in your life around this particular issue, wherever you find Pisces in your chart? And as you evaluate yourself over the next 6 months, what would you keep? What would you change? So that's kind of the idea about Saturn being retrograde in Pisces until November. Um, when that transit started, though, because a lot of times the moment that a planet goes retrograde or we experience any sort of planetary aspect, that moment can indicate a lot about how the whole thing might unfold over the next 6 months. And so that's why I have the chart for June 30th pulled up. So we can look at some of the planetary aspects. Is anybody in conversation with Saturn that also might be a planetary teacher for us? So again, we find Saturn retrograding in Pisces here. And then I'm going to look around the chart and see if anything is around 19 degrees of a sign. So anywhere from like maybe 14 to 25. Let's see what is up. I see Venus in Cancer at 17 degrees. And what kind of aspect is that making to Saturn? It's making a trine aspect, Trine, and that is a positive or supporting aspect that talks about two planets that are in conversation with each other and they're helping each other. They have each other's back. Anything else that I see? I see. Ooh, Mars in Taurus at 16 degrees. And it is about 60 degrees away from that Saturn. So it's in a sextile relationship, which is also a supportive relationship, just not as supportive as the trine. So let's talk about what those aspects might mean over the next 6 months of this Saturn retrograde transit. So if we've got Venus in Cancer, I definitely think about the experience of Venus is how we attract and magnetize things to us. It's like luck, but it's a sort of passive experience of luck. So yeah, when we attract things by being in our cancer energy, by nurturing ourselves, being self-protective, being cautious, there might be a little bit of emotional up and down, because Cancer is ruled by the moon. But yeah, being more nurturing, being more protective and sensitive during this time, um, and attracting that kind of energy to us. So, people in our lives that might be more nurturing, protective, more emotional, or at least emotionally in tuned, that kind of warmth, that could be something that could support the work that we are meant to be doing in Saturn. Um, and it's like the experience of whatever work you're meant to be doing in Saturn with Pisces, because of the Saturn in Pisces transit. How could that work be supported when you think about nurturing yourself, doing the self-care strategies that have served you, and how have these self-care strategies that you may have used in the past, how have those supported you in the past? Are they still supporting you? How would you like to shift and change them over the next 6 months of this transit? That kind of energy is what I'm thinking about when I think about, oh, we have Venus in Cancer that might be supporting the Saturn retrograde. So that's the first sort of aspect that I wanted to look at. And then I wanted to look at the Mars in Taurus, which is also supporting this Saturn transit. Um, I think when I think about Mars being in Taurus, I think about our experience of our values and the values that keep us like focused on and like driven to like the goals that we want to accomplish, generally speaking, in life. And so what values are driving you now, and how can those values also support the work that you have been doing since March in terms of Saturn being in Pisces? Does that make sense? And also, yeah, where do you find all of these supporting planets in your chart? So we're talking about Venus and Cancer. So in what house do you have? Oh, hey Corey. In what house do you have Cancer? In what house do you have Pisces? And also, in what house do you have Taurus? Putting those things together might help you figure out the picture of, oh, okay, so this is the work that I'm meant to be looking at, revising, editing over the next 6 months as Saturn is going retrograde. So, yeah, I hope that helps. I unexpectedly find myself incredibly nervous. And so I feel like I'm not speaking clearly. But yeah, I've got my notes. I trust myself. People that love me are in the room and in the chat, and I'm okay. That's more for me than anything else. So yeah, that's the first big transit that I wanted to look at. Oh, thank you, Boo. I love you, Nikki. And yeah, so we got that as the first big transit. The next big transit that I wanted to look at is around July 2nd, 1551. Let's look at that. Mm, mm, mm. July 2nd. And I said around 15. Yeah, let's just do that. So, yeah, this is us looking at the second major transit for the month of July, which is Neptune going retrograde. It's funny, these outer planets So like basically the closer a planet is to Earth, the more it might have a personal effect on your day-to-day life. And usually those are real short transits, for example, like the moon changing signs every 2 days or so. Um, or Mercury changing signs like every 3 weeks or so, or the sun changing signs every month, right? Those are like personal things that affect you on a day to day basis. Whereas you get to these outer planets, and those tend to be slower transits. So, like, yes, we talked about Saturn retrograding for like 6 months' time, right? Neptune is going to be in retrograde for about 6 months as well. And these are sort of more societal things. And so, yeah, you can apply these to your chart by knowing like where Neptune, excuse me, where Pisces is in your chart. But also, I also want to offer up that, this is more of a long range thing. So even though things are starting in July, you may not see the effects of them right now on July 2nd. I'm just using this moment uh, that the planet actually goes retrograde to determine what might unfold gently over the course of the next 6 months. So, yeah, I just wanted to offer up that caveat. So yeah, we've got Neptune in Pisces going retrograde starting July 2nd, which is technically yesterday. So yeah, I still want to look at it though. So at the moment that Neptune goes retrograde, I also notice that it is in a aspect or in a relationship to, where are we at here? Where is it at? Ah, here we go. Mercury in Leo at 0 degrees. And there was one more aspect I wanted to look at here. Mm, 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 mm. Oh, I thought that we should look at the moon sitting in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius, because all of those things are taking place within 5 degrees of this 29-degree Neptune. So let me go over what I think, how I would interpret like Neptune going retrograde, and then let's look at those aspects at the moment that Neptune goes retrograde to maybe tell us a little bit about the texture of what might unfold over the next 5 months, right? So, uh, first thing that I would look at is the idea of Neptune going retrograde, generally speaking. So, Neptune, when it's actually doing its work and it's going forward or being direct, right? It is about, it can be about the sort of delusions that we hold. But in this sense, I'm not using delusion in a sort of pejorative way. I'm talking about like how delusion can be a sort of hope that keeps us motivated. And so, in that way, believing in things and having faith in things that may not seem probable or likely can be a way to sort of push us forward. And how it's just so important to have hope in our lives. And when I see Neptune go retrograde, sometimes I see, a couple of different, a range of experiences. Sometimes I will see the experience of, oh my God, I have lost hope. Nothing seems possible. How dare I possibly dream? Or another spectrum of experiences could be the experience of, let's be so fucking for real. Let's actually look at the reality of situations and stop indulging in faith, delusions, hope, and actually look at what is actually happening. So when I think about Neptune going retrograde and Saturn going retrograde, this has the energy to me of the next like 5, 6 months of being like, okay, let's get really, really clear. Let's get really, really clear about the work. that needs to be done, Saturn and Pisces. Let's get really, really clear about boundaries that need to be built, Neptune and Pisces. And so I think that might be something like what everybody is experiencing. And then I wonder about people's individual charts. Where do you have Pisces in your chart? And what can be said about the work that you've been doing in that area of your life? And maybe delusions and hopes and dreams that you have had around that type of work that you've been doing. And then over the next 5 months, how might those hopes, dreams fall away in favor of something that is concrete and real? So I think that's like overarching kind of what may happen. And then I'm looking at the aspects to tell me a little bit about the texture of things. So the aspects that I wanted to focus on were the moon in Gemini. So, what role will intuitive communication, gut instincts, following your gut, understanding that intuitive information is as valuable as written book information or conversations that you might have with other folks. But yeah, what sort of intuitive downloads might you get about the Pisces house in your chart? And how might that influence the work that you've been doing in that particular area? So that's one aspect that I think is going to be involved in this transit, right? The other aspect that I wanted to look at was the Mercury in Leo. Are there any big ideas that you might have that might unfold over the next 5 months about the Pisces area of your chart? Um, so for me, and I hope that I'm not divulging too much, I have Pisces in the fourth house, and I think a lot about home. And I'm curious about the experience of having some big ideas about changing home, moving, finding a new place to live. And I'm really curious about intuitive downloads that might help me to get some clarity around that, right? So we've got Mercury involved. We've got Mercury involved in a different way because the moon being in Gemini at that moment that Neptune goes retrograde. And oh, there was a little bit of the Pluto in Aquarius energy that's thrown in the mix during this particular transit as well. So I'm wondering about structures that exist in your life that are or that are ready and willing to fall away and be transformed in a in a way that you had not expected, in a way that sort of feels like it's out of left field. And so, yeah, as it relates to this transit and Neptune going retrograde over the next 5 months, um, I am wondering about paying attention to your gut instincts and ideas that come to you, especially big creative ideas that make you feel excited and passionate, you know, that Mercury Leo energy, and how those ideas that might come to you, ferment over the next 5 months, might lead to some incredible transformation. All of that happening in that Pisces area of your chart, if that makes sense. So, yeah, those are two really, really big transits. And those are starting here in July, but like unfolding over the next 5 months. Again, might not be something that you see happening right now, but something that unfolds gently over the next 5 months. I believe it's, let's see, oh, until December 7th. Neptune is retrograde until December 7th. And then when it goes direct, we get to implement any of these really cool ideas, transformations in the Pisces house of our chart. So that's those two big transits. And now let's look at two smaller transits. And by smaller transits, I mean transits to the personal planets that might affect us more intimately and more immediately. So The last two transits that I want to look at are Venus going into Leo on July 11th. So let me advance the wheel here. July 11th. And boop, boop. And do I have the right time? Yeah, I think we're looking at Venus going into Leo right here. Cool, cool, cool. So yeah, generally speaking, what's Venus going into Leo mean? So reminder that Venus is everything that we do to attract, to passively manifest things into our life. And so, for everyone, there may be an experience of being more attractive, literally being able to attract and manifest things into your life during this time period when you're in your in your Leo vibes. What are Leo vibes? Well, it is a fixed fire sign. So, what is it like to be committed to that which feels passionate and exciting to you? It is ruled by the sun. And so, I think about a brightness, a cheeriness, an excitement. And so, what is it like to attract things to you during the season by being more excited, more passionate, being more committed to that which makes you feel joyful and almost even childlike enthusiasm in life? Um, Such a beautiful thing to think of. At the moment that this transit happens, though, so on July 11th, I also noticed that it's in opposition to Pluto in Aquarius at 1 degree here. So we got Venus and Leo opposing Pluto. And so I wonder about any feelings of intensity that might be affecting your love relationships, romantic relationships, or any sort of close, intimate connection that you have because of that Venus vibe. You know, it can be associated with romantic relationships as well. And so I wonder if on that day of July 11th, there might be, maybe some intensity or power dynamics that unfold in a sort of romantic or love relationship or intimate relationship that you have with folks. So that's just something to keep an eye on. And if I were to say how to sort of remediate that, well, these planets are in opposition. And when I think about planets being in opposition, I think about like a seesaw. We got to find the balance somewhere in the middle. So, what's the place in which you get to shine and your partner gets to shine? How can you shine on each other? How can you make each other feel good? How can you allow each other to express themselves and feel that childlike enthusiasm and joy without indulging in a push pull power dynamic intensity kind of vibe? So yeah, that's just something to think about, like on July 11th, as Venus is sitting at 0 degrees, 1 degree, 2 degrees, that kind of thing. But I think that idea sort of dissipates after a few days, and then we get this experience of having just Venus in Leo and what that means in terms of attracting and manifesting things by finding joy and embodying joy and self-expression and creativity in your life. So yeah, that is a little transit that I would want folks to look at. And yeah, if you want to know more about how that affects you, where do you have Leo in your house? Oh, excuse me. In what house do you have Leo? And in what house do you have Aquarius? And that might tell you a little bit about more about like the area of life that might be affected by those transits and maybe by that energy of intensity or so. So that's the Venus and Leo transit. That's July 11th. And then the last thing that I wanted to look at is the second Capricorn full moon in the later part of the month. I believe it's on the 21st. Let's check that out. Boop, boop, boop. I'm trying to get to the exact ish moment. Give me a moment. Mm, Uh, we got 3 and we got 29. Keep going. A full moon is when the moon is directly opposite of the sun. And so I see the sun is at 29 degrees of Cancer. So I'm trying to get the moon to be near 29 degrees. Hold on. 0, 29. Mm-mm. 2910, 2934. I'll take it. So here we go. We got the sun in Cancer. We got the moon over here in Capricorn. This is the second Capricorn full moon. It happens like that occasionally that we get extra moons in the month. So we had a Capricorn full moon a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, this will be our second one of these at the end of July. And a full moon, generally speaking, is a time of release. It's a time of harvesting. And so it could also be a time of letting go or evaluating and really looking at what you've achieved in terms of this Capricorn cycle. So, way back in Cancer season of last year, when you had excuse me, way back in Capricorn season of last year, December, January or so, you might have started a new cycle in the Capricorn area of your chart, depending on what house you have Capricorn in, right? So think about that area of life. Think about what you might have started. And then now, 6 months later, we get the opportunity to evaluate what we started, what work was done, what works, what doesn't work, particularly as it relates to any sort of structures, routines, habits, any sort of like incremental thing that you have been doing over the last 6 months as it relates to that Capricorn energy in your chart. And then when we get to the full moon, we get to like look at that, evaluate it, decide what works, what didn't work, let it go, release it, or decide like what worked and what we would like to continue to do, right? So that's kind of like the general overarching idea of like a full moon in Capricorn. And then as it relates to looking at the specifics, because we can see like what planetary aspects are being made. One thing that I would note is that this full moon is happening at the 29th degree. That's the last possible degree that the moon could be in Cancer. And a lot of times, when planets are at the 29th degree of a sign, you get the feeling that it's almost an intensity. Like, have I done all the work? Have I done exactly what I meant to do in this sign? Double check. Let's make sure that we are really insistent about this energy and that we've actually done all of the things. And so I expect that this Capricorn full moon might be a much more intense experience of reckoning and releasing than we might have experienced with other full moons this year. So that's one thing that I would want us to look at as it relates to that transit. And then, if it's happening at 29 degrees and I want to know like what else is in aspect to that, the first thing that comes to mind is it is sitting right next to Pluto and it is combining its energy with Pluto. So again, I'm wondering about the experience of intensity as it relates to this full moon, emotional intensity over structures, work that has been done over the last 6 months as it relates to the Capricorn house of your chart. Especially since this Pluto is retrograde. Um, I'm expecting that a lot of this intensity will feel more self-directed, more internalized. And my experience of emotional intensity that is internalized and the experience of trying to release is crying and emotional upheaval. Your mileage may vary. Maybe you're not a water sign like I am, but that's something to sort of look at or maybe anticipate uh, when it comes to that particular transit. But yeah, being in Capricorn and in Aquarius, this says a lot about structures that have been built and how they are serving or not serving you and what you would like to release in terms of the work that's been done, structures created, that sort of thing. So that's one big aspect that I wanted to look at. There was something else. Hold on, let me check my notes. Mm, psychological and emotional transformation is a phrase that I used. Ooh, yeah, I like that. Um, Trine, Mars, and Gemini. Let's see. Hold on. Oh, yeah. In terms of supportive aspects to this transit, this experience of releasing the Capricorn energy, what may be supporting us is this Mars in Gemini here. So, any sort of conversations that you've been having with people or conversations that you might have with people on that day that may contribute to that feeling of emotional intensity. I wonder, just something to be aware of if maybe there might be a little bit of speaking recklessly or like popping off on that day on the people around you. And so, yeah, I'm not saying that that's exactly what's going to happen, but what if this is your heads up to maybe like temper yourself and be aware of things during on that particular day. And then I also see that also at 29 degrees, we've got Neptune retrograding, and we already talked about what like Neptune retrograde means. But yeah, if we're in the space of being so fucking for real and being maybe a little reckless with our speech and experiencing emotional intensity, maybe this is a day to like really be aware of your trigger points and, you know, conduct yourself accordingly. I think those were all the aspects that I wanted to look at as it relates to that. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, those are the four main transits that I wanted to look at just for the month of July. There are so many other transits that I could look at. I'm still trying to figure out my technique for like what transits I want to choose to look at in any given month. But yeah, I wanted to look at those two big ones: Saturn going retrograde, Neptune going retrograde, and two more personal ones. I wanted to look at that second full moon and the Venus in Leo situation on July 11th. So, yeah, those are the transits that I wanted to talk about. And now I am definitely open to hearing from you all. Do you have any questions of me? Do you want to share your chart? Maybe we can look at your chart and see how these transits will affect you directly. Or, maybe you want me to share my chart so we can talk about how these transits might affect me and I can share that with you. Do I feel like doing that? No, not at all. Not at all. But yeah, I am open to anyone who has questions or anyone who wants to look at their chart together. I'm absolutely uh, willing and able to do that with you. Let's talk about it. Um, let's look at some charts. Let's be nosy. Oh, I lost my comments. Mhm. Oh, let me check the Facebook feed too. Mm, hmm. It doesn't look like there's any. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any comments on the Facebook. Oh yeah. Nikki, do I have your chart already? And I don't think that I do. So will you share your information with me? Hold on. I'm looking to see if I have it. Oh wait, I do have it. Hold on. I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment. I think I have too many tabs open. There we go. Add the transits and let me share your chart. Present. There we go. Um, so Nikki, thank you for sharing your chart and allowing us to look at your chart. We talked about Saturn retrograding and Neptune retrograding Pisces. Hold on just a second. I've chosen the wrong chart. Not Placidus, whole sign. There we go. Great. All right. So yeah, we talked about Saturn retrograding and Neptune retrograding through Pisces, which is your first house. And so when I think about first house experiences, I think about any sort of self development kind of work that you've been doing. Or if you have been changing your physical expression of yourself, like if you've done any sort of work in terms of changing your hair or changing your personal style. But yeah, getting more like deep into it. I wonder if there's been any sort of self-development work that you started in March of 2023. And I wonder how that work has been going for you. And then when I think about this transit that's coming up, Saturn going retrograde and Neptune retrograde, it makes me think about an opportunity to get really, really introspective about, okay, I've been doing this work for on myself. How's it been going? Do I actually like the person that I'm growing into and the ways in which I am changing? Do I want to continue doing this work, or are there facets of it that I want to continue to do, and facets of it that I would not like to do? And I'm curious about any sort of structures that you have put in place since March of 2023 that help you improve yourself. So maybe you're like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you're trying to eat right, whatever that looks like for you. Or maybe you're trying to get your 8 hours of sleep, or I can't think of any examples. Let me do, feel free to comment if you want to share anything. But yeah, anything about your personal development. Maybe you've started doing self help workbooks or something like that. Any kind of structures that you've put in place. The next 5 months until November are a time to like really look at those structures, see if they're serving you, and decide whether you want to continue to do these things or not. And then with Neptune being retrograde in the first house as well, I think about, like I said, like an opportunity to just be so fucking real. Anything that you have been delusional about as it relates to your sense of self, um, you will get the opportunity over the next 5 to 6 months to be like, oh my God, have I been lying to myself about this? Have I been delusional about this? How do I want to shift doing things that actually serves me and is not rooted in me lying to or being delusional to myself? So yeah, those are two big transits that will unfold gently over the next 5, 6 months. I think Saturn ends in November, or Saturn goes direct in November, Neptune goes direct in December. And so yeah, that comes to mind. Let me know if you have any questions about that or if it resonates for you. And then the other transits were Venus going into Leo. Let's see where you have Leo in your chart. Oh, okay. Oh, you also have your North Node sitting in Leo too. Um, so with Venus going in Leo in your sixth house, I wonder about being able to attract opportunities to yourself that are the kind of opportunities that will allow you to improve your day-to-day circumstances. Um, so I'm thinking like maybe it's a gym membership because you've been wanting to work out more and someone gives you a free gym membership, that kind of thing. Um, or maybe experiences of attracting a new day job to yourself. Um, but somehow it improves your sense of like, okay, yeah, I got my daily routines in order. This feels good. This feels stable. And particularly if you're able to attract these sorts of situations over the next like couple of weeks, when July from like July 1st to August, mid-August or so, if you're able to attract those kinds of things by being in your Leo energy, being more playful, being more self-expressive, ooh, being in your creative bag. So like for example, what if you put out new music and somebody heard it and they were like, "Oh man, I really, really want to support that person." And they reach out to you and they're like, "Hey, I have HelloFresh coupons for you so that you can eat good and have an amazing diet this month," like that kind of thing could be. That's an example, a very far-fetched example. Um, but yeah, that could be a thing that might unfold with Venus in July in Leo transit, and that's starting July 11th. And then the last transit that we talked about was that Capricorn full moon. And where does that hit for you? Oh, in your 11th house. So, reminder that it might be emotionally hard, but I wonder if there is anything in terms of friend groups that you belong to, or maybe even professional groups. Like I know that you do music, like if there's a songwriters guild or something like that you're a part of. And when that full moon transit hits on July 21st, what you might be ready to release at that time. Letting friends go or associations go, and what you might build in their place. So, like if I were to let a friend go, but that friend was the person that did my sound engineering, then how what would change after that? Would you then learn sound engineering on your own or find a different sound engineer or, that kind of thing? But yeah, something about your friend groups might be ready to be released and let go of, um, in favor of something better that serves you a little bit more. And that might happen on the 21st of July, if that makes sense. So yeah, that is what I have for you. Let me know if you have any questions about that or if anybody else wants us to look at their chart for a second. I'm going to take your chart down so it's not embarrassing to have it all out there. Stop sharing. There we go. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad that it resonated. Mm, absolutely. Absolutely. Love you, friend. And thanks for supporting me and stopping by. Um Cool, cool. Well, if we don't have any other charts to look at, I see that we're about the 50-minute mark, so I'm probably gonna hop off the live here in a second. Before I do, two things. One, if you are a YouTube creator and you are trying to build your account up and you are tired of doing it entirely by yourself and in isolation, please consider that I have a group. It is called Cultivate Community, and we are a group of small YouTube creators that are just coming together to be in reciprocal support of each other as we build up our YouTube channels. You don't have to do this by yourself. And so we have a Discord group and we meet about every 4 to 6 weeks ish. But yeah, it's just the kind of group where we like ask each other for feedback, advice, talk aloud about our struggles, and just check in with each other. How do you do this? Oh, what's your technique for this? Sharing ideas. So yeah, if you would like to join that group, let me know. And I will get you added to that Discord because you do not have to do this alone. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is if you want to see me as a person, as a YouTube creator succeed, please consider becoming a channel member. The channel members on my channel are called Cosmic Cuties, which is adorable. And you get all kinds of cool perks like custom emojis and loyalty badges. You get to have your chart read when I do lives like this. You get to have your questions put to the front of the line when I do lives like this. And you get to be in support of a really dope, amazing Black queer autistic creator. That's me. So yeah, please consider being a channel member, or if you don't have the coin to like support on a monthly basis like that, please consider just doing a super thanks using that heart-shaped button below. And that's basically just like an opportunity to tip your friend. Yeah, that's everything I have to say about supporting my channel. And yeah, that's all I got in this moment. Thank you so much for everybody who stopped by the live, who left supporting comments. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, everybody that is going to watch this in the future. And yeah, I appreciate you so much for listening to me ramble about my special interest in astrology. Ah, I just love it. I love talking about it. Anyway, thank you for supporting me. Thank you for being here in this moment. And thank you for making time for queer astrology. Bye.